Alright, Stranger Things VR finally came out after initially being delayed near the end of 2023, then indefinitely, then finally setting for February 22, 2024. Seeing opinions about Stranger Things VR, it's best described as a mixed bag. From the usual 5-star rating reviews that want to leech off referral codes, to some people actually enjoying the experience, and some VR publications and YouTubers saying that it's sort of a letdown. And having played the game from start to finish, I would definitely lean along the middle with this experience. It's not horribly bad, but it isn't amazing where you just have to pause the video and go out and buy it. However, if you're a fan of the Stranger Things universe like me, it's definitely worth at least checking out. Though at $30, it is a little overpriced, and paying $10 to $20 would be a better option, as I finished it in 2 hours and 41 minutes with some change. At this moment, Stranger Things VR is exclusive to all MetaQuest platforms 2 and above. This title is big for VR with its IP, but it only dips its toes in the water. Horror is big in this, but it's not extremely scary, where you have to close your eyes entering certain parts. It plays more into the psychological horror and reminds me a lot of a game called Control, where everything is sort of ominous. I call Stranger Things VR an experience because if you come looking for a game, you will be disappointed, as it's more of a interactive 3D movie in VR. I want to give my brief understanding of the game, its story, gameplay likes and dislikes, and give a side-by-side graphics comparison, then close it off with my final thoughts. So Stranger Things VR is made up of 9 different chapters, with you playing and viewing the world from the perspective of Vecna. Some chapters are really long compared to others, as in one chapter, one of them was at least around 30 minutes or so, with constantly revisiting old memories and understanding the mind of a psychopath. It really digs deep psychologically, and some chapters are less than 5 or 10 minutes. As Vecna, you grab, crush, and spread your corruption into Hoggins as you manipulate people into your bidding. You feed the hive mind, go deep inside the relationship with Dr. Brenner, and it also includes a part with Henry Creel. You also plan your revenge against Eleven and the rest of Hawkins. It's mainly a VR experience with 2 short mixed reality experiences that are cool if you're new to VR and actually have the play space, and the MR allure wears off over some time. The story at the start is all over the place. Then in the middle you come to terms with what the gameplay loop is, with traveling back and forth to the upside down while invading people's memories. The story is really sporadic and it isn't for everyone. However, with the story told through Vecna's perspective, it really matches his psychotic nature to try and justify the harm he is doing to others. I personally enjoyed it, and after finishing the experience, it made me want more. The art pieces are really stunning and play into symbolism as Vecna deals with loneliness and hatred. I don't want to turn this video into an Art 101 appreciation class, but on Quest 3, at least the visual storytelling is beautiful, and I wish we got more of it. At first, with the announcement of the game, I was skeptical of how a Stranger Things VR game would be. At its core, it's like an interactive 3D novel that is best played sitting down. With gameplay, it tries to make use of mechanics with grabbing and crushing things, climbing with your vines in the upside down, and combat demogorgons, which is cool. But this isn't a traditional game, though when it sticks to visual storytelling, that's when it captivated me the most. There are sections that feel a little rushed and undercooked that I would have loved if they dove into more. Some sections, like the upside down, do at times feel like filler. I also want to mention before I forget, the quality and use of audio is really good.
Oh, well, I just thought I'd try something new. New neighborhood, new us, new food.
Certain chapters make use of spatial audio, and it adds to the immersion. Music actively plays in sections, switching between worlds and perspectives, and adds suspense as you traverse the mind of Vecna. Audio work is also really done, except for the minor parts where some characters talk on your left and you hear their voice on the right. Then let's talk about the graphics and performance of Stranger Things VR. Graphically, Stranger Things VR is pretty good and uses stylized art that its developer Tenderclaws has used in a lot of other games like virtual reality and the underpresence. Not every game has to be a graphical showcase trying to achieve near realistic graphics. The quote, "The whole is greater than the sum of its parts," and stylized graphics, especially on standalone VR when done right, is stunning. I wish we got more games that lean on this type of art direction, as a lot of titles tend on Quest that are unable to take advantage of its hardware due to it being a mobile headset end up looking like asset flips. The game looks pretty good on Quest 3 and easily would be a title to show others that like Stranger Things to get into VR. I will say that I'm kind of surprised this game doesn't use application space warp, as titles like this that are generally slower or single player would benefit from it. Also, considering application space warp is not a make or break tech, so you can use it in the app or switch it off. 72Hz on this feels great though with the art direction. If you're looking to purchase this game at all, or you're still thinking about getting a Quest 3 and upgrading, this game shows why the extra juice of Quest 3 is well worth the money. The bump on resolution on Quest 3 to Quest 2 makes a world of difference. On the metrics with iBuffer, EBW, and L, it tells you the exact in-game resolution that it's rendered on standalone. This game hasn't gotten a Quest 3 update, as it's pretty much still a Quest 2 build, with Quest 3 getting an upgrade on resolution scale, as well as the extra performance headroom this game still has on Quest 3. And I also want to note, you don't see much of it in the comparison as it's cropped to fit side by side, but on Quest 2, it heavily relies on fixed foveated rendering and dynamic resolution scaling. That means if you enter certain areas that are more taxing on the GPU load, it downscales the resolution. There are other games that do make use of it, but it's hardly noticeable, and in this title, you do feel it. With lower resolution, even the Fresnel lenses, it looks really rough, as if Vaseline was rubbed all over certain textures, and everything in the view distance looks blurry. If you were to get this game, Quest 3 is the way to experience it. And if your only option is Quest 2, I would hold off to see if any optimization would come our way to make it a more pleasant experience. Talking about optimization, it's still rough on both platforms. Because the game switches constantly back and forth between the upside down and real life, it tries to make use of transitions and audio cues to cut in or cut out of certain sections. At times it works, then randomly the game will either hiccup, freeze for a second or two, and mess with the storytelling, throwing you off. Stranger Things VR definitely needs some patching up, and some sections had me hearing double voices, cutting the frame rate in half, and I had to restart the headset to get things running normally. It's not a flawless release, but considering this game was delayed and pushed back a couple of months, that initial release probably would have resembled close to Bulletstorm VR levels of effort. And alright, lastly, is Stranger Things VR worth it? I don't believe in a rating system, as I personally think reviewers just look kind of hypocritical when giving certain scores to games and not others. I follow the buy, wait for a sale, or pass formula. I would say wait for a sale or a price drop. Or if you're a Stranger Things VR fan, this is a must buy with a use of a referral code through Metadog. At $30, this is egregious to see that we're still paying full price in terms for a VR game for 2016 VR level of efforts. I would have loved to see more effort and focus on characters other than Vecna. Vecna isn't a bad character, but it kind of reminds me of Star Wars Tales of the Galaxy's Edge, with the IP is dope, but we want to play the main characters. Combat is kind of bad, and I avoided it in my playthrough as there's nothing satisfactory about it, and it's very janky. But its storytelling and visuals are pretty good, and it had me hooked that I ended up finishing the game. It has interesting concepts that I wish had more time to cook in the oven. But yeah, that's pretty much all my thoughts summed up on Stranger Things VR. Drop a comment down below if you liked or disliked the experience. I'd love to know what the community thinks about it. But yeah, drop a like, subscribe for more content, and until the next video.